Innocent Star Blessings, welcome back. Let's talk about the full moon in Capricorn, taking place pretty much just after the solstice. So quite a powerful full moon. And in fact, we're going to have two full moons in the sign of Capricorn. So that's obviously quite an emphasized archetype, particularly in the months of June and July. I was thinking also about, because I've spoken so much about Venus being invisible in the underworld, which she still is, by the way, for this full moon as well. And I've shared some thoughts around that from the point of view of the ancient astrological teachings, which suggest many different things. But one thing that I've mentioned is the matters of well, when Venus is invisible, there can be matters of betrayal that come up in Venusian things. So that could be with sisters, that could be with lovers, that could be with friends, that could be with family, it could be, you know, in a number of different streams, if you like. And I've noticed that a lot of people have come forth and have expressed, you know, aspects of their story relating to that theme. And whilst I do understand that it is painful when that happens, it's not pleasant, it's, you know, it's to the contrary, it's not what we want to experience by anybody, really. But I think what this full moon is going to be highlighting for all of us is, and because we're having two Capricorn full moons, is the matter of being our own authority and being responsible for what we choose to participate in. So even though there are betrayals and there are dishonesties and a number of different things, you know, taking place at any given moment, whether it's on a collective scale, whether it's on a personal scale, we always have a choice in how we are going to, or how we are participating, or how we are putting our energy into a relationship, a connection, a situation, whatever it may be. And so I want to read this poem from Rumi, which is one of my favorite little poems. And it goes like this: I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on the door. It opens, I've been knocking from the inside. Now I'll leave that for you to reflect on if you wish, and to see how and why that might be speaking to what I'm about to discuss. And I bring that poem up because it's extremely powerful and it can have a lot of different interpretations. But for me, it really speaks to how we can become disillusioned ourselves with our life, with what we perceive, with what we engage in, and so on and so forth. And I bring this up because this full moon is actually forming a square to Neptune. And it's really the primary aspect, quite apart from Venus being opposite the full moon. And Venus is still invisible. And Neptune is at the anaretic degree. It's at the 29th degree. So this journey of Neptune, which began, I think it was in, well, it was 14 years ago, right? So quite some time ago. And when a planet reaches the last degree of that sign, it's a very critical time. It's basically dismantling everything. And in this case, we're talking about Neptune, which does dissolve. Neptune is the planetary archetype that dissolves whatever it's moving through, whatever it's connecting to, whatever it's touching. So I think we're going through, you know, a massive collective sense of disillusionment with what we thought reality was, right? And there's just themes and things blowing up left, right, and center, being dismantled or dissolving, which, you know, it does leave a sense of either disappointment or a sense of insecurity, a sense of thinking, what the fuck, basically? What was I thinking? What was I believing all this time? What was I perceiving about this world all this time? So of course it can feel, you know, like we've been sort of ripped off in a way, right? But once again, you know, Capricorn being a cardinal sign, and the sun's in Cancer, another cardinal sign. First of all, cardinal energy is a very strong energy. the cardinal cross, as it were, is often activated in the world when, you know, huge shifts take place on the earth plane, and certainly in our own lives as well. And this full moon is happening at the first degree of Capricorn. The moon's at 1 degree of Capricorn and the sun's at 1 degree of Cancer. It's almost, well, it's past 0, because 0 is where the solstice occurs, so a day before. So the energy is very potent from the day before, meaning the solstice energy, which is a very potent energy. It is a very powerful energy, but it happens every year. It's not an unusual phenomena. It is a passage where, you know, the sun has the most light in the northern hemisphere and the least light for us here in the southern hemisphere. And it is freezing here, by the way. We got down to 2 degrees last night. I had the heater on all night. Coco and I were all cozied up. So, you know, the light is at its peak, at its maximum level in the northern hemisphere, and it's the opposite for us here. So there is, you know, something very powerful and energetically taking place with the sun's movement, you know, as the sun travels through the zodiac. We know that, you know, the solstice happens every year. Yes, there are rituals and practices and, you know, all sorts of celebrations and things that go on collectively, you know, depending on what you believe and depending on how you wish to embrace this energy and participate with it. But whether we do or whether we don't, it is a very powerful window, particularly on a spiritual level, for lack of a better word. So cardinal energy is very potent. It is the energy that actually makes things happen, makes things change. You know, when we're looking at a chart, when we're looking at astrology, cardinal energy is often the energy we will acknowledge, which is a quality, right? There's mutable, cardinal, fixed. They're the qualities, right? So they mean something very specific. Cardinal energy is always about something being acted upon. You know, it's an initiative energy. So it makes things move, it makes things happen. The fact that this full moon is squaring Neptune, it is an out of sign square. So it's a T-square, basically, sun-moon opposition. I'll show you the chart in a moment. And Neptune is right in the middle of them, as it were. That's called a T-square in astrology. And Neptune's at the anaretic degree, the last degree. So it's, you know, Neptune is really in that process of really flushing out everything that Neptune in Pisces has meant, which has meant a lot of different things, you know, on a personal level and then collectively for a 14-year period, right? So many things involved in that. But given it's at the end point, as it were, Neptune's about to go retrograde, so it's got one more final stage, you know, before it finishes everything in the sign of Pisces, right? And full moons obviously illuminate things. They activate energy. You know, they make that energy, as it were, more potent or highlighted things relative to the full moon, where the full moon is, the sign that it's in, you know, much more illuminated. We all know that, right? And Capricorn, of course, does correspond to the consensus reality, the conscious construct of this reality as we perceive it. And everyone has a different perception. And, you know, which perception is correct? I think, you know, that's a very difficult question to answer because it depends on you. It depends on your own subjective nature. It depends on your own subjective projections. It depends on how you perceive things. It depends on whether you're on an individuated level in this lifetime from a soul perspective, or whether you live in that consensus reality and just accept what is presented as though it's gospel. At the highest level, Capricorn is ultimately asking us, if you like, to learn to become our own authority with how we experience this reality, with how we experience this life, with how we perceive everything. Let me just bring up the chart, and because there's a couple of things to show. Just pop myself down there. I am feeling so cold. It is so cold. It's only about 4 degrees still, I think. Just, yeah, really cold. Okay, so this is the full moon chart for Melbourne, which is my own location. meaning the position of everything will change depending on what location you're in. This is the tropical zodiac, so this is tropical astrology, okay? There's the sun at 1 degrees of Cancer, there's the moon at 1 degrees of Cancer, and there's Neptune, okay? So basically, where's my, just grab an assistant. Okay, there's Neptune, all right? It's 29 degrees and 54 minutes, right at the last degree. Very, very significant degree from an evolutionary level. There's something huge that's basically been completed. And because it is Neptune, as I said, Neptune dissolves things. There are structures just being dissolved left, right, and center. That includes things that we have perceived to be truth, have perceived to be real. It's a very difficult energy, Neptune. And I'm teaching a class this Friday on Neptune and Pluto. I encourage you to come along, even if you think you understand Neptune and Pluto, come along. There's going to be a lot of things that you will hear and experience that I promise you wouldn't have heard before because of my eclectic approach, first of all. So Neptune's at the 29th degree. It's only 1 degree away from being at 0 degrees Aries, right? So this T-square is potent. It is loaded. Furthermore, next month we have another full moon in Capricorn. Again, it's really showing us that there's something very significant relative to Capricorn, conscious construct of your reality, and all the illusions, Neptune squaring the full moon. Remember, squares are very dynamic. They bring up things that are uncomfortable, but the nature of that is also what causes us to create a change. Because when something is so uncomfortable, we have to move and we have to do something about it. We have to help the situation. We have to change the situation, alter the situation, whatever it is, right? In order to make it work. That's what squares do. They're dynamic. They're fully loaded energies that do help us make change. But it comes in as a sense of something that's not comfortable. That's the only way you're going to get moving on something. If everything's fine and dandy and, you know, everything's roses and flowers, we are not going to move. That's Taurus, right? That's why Taurus likes to be so comfortable and relaxed and chilled. So unless something, you know, really pushes Taurus, Taurus ain't going to move out of that park, away from those flowers. The other thing as well is that Capricorn and Cancer, you know, they form a square to Aries and Libra as well, right? In the natural order of the zodiac. Now, the nodes are still in Aries, Libra, and, you know, they are within reason actually squaring this full moon as well, because they're only about 11 degrees away. And that's not too wide for those nodes to be in this story as well. And if you look at it from a holistic level, we are looking at the themes that correspond to our own individual identity. Aries, North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra, our world of relationships and world of relating, and how we step in and out of relationships and everything we experience and everything we have been learning via relationships. Squaring the sun in Cancer, which is our own personal identity and our emotional body and so-called sense of security. And then Capricorn in the picture brings up that sense of who we are in this world, in this reality. And so this is basically, you know, it's a cardinal square, right? And so there's tension between all these archetypes, and Neptune is right there in the picture. And ultimately, I feel this is really just simply saying, look, there are so many aspects of this reality that are falling apart for many different reasons, some of which would be because so much of it was built on lies. Some of it will be because it was built on our own ideals, fantasies, realities that we constructed that we thought were real, and so on and so on and so forth. So this full moon is just highlighting, become your own authority. Take sort of control, right, of what you are understanding about this reality, because what you thought it was, Neptune in Pisces, it's all falling apart. There's no holding on to it. Neptune just dissolves whatever it touches. And at that last degree, it is absolutely crucial. It's doing its last song and dance, if you like, in the sign of Pisces. So, yeah, I think just really listening to our own inner voice, our own inner authority, and taking control, and I suppose creating a greater sense of empowerment with that. Because the alternate point to that would be to feel powerless and to feel obviously disappointed, Neptune, disillusioned, and then subsequently feel victimized in what's taking place. And none of us really want to feel like that, I don't think. So what can we do about it? What we can do is actually just get very clear and very realistic about this life and about our life and what we are trying to do moving forward as well. So that's really the crux of this full moon, you know, from my perspective. And Venus is still invisible. I've spoken about the Mercury-Venus conjunction in a previous video just before this one, so you can see that if you haven't, and it's worth actually listening to. There's a lot of really important themes that I discuss around Venus and Mercury. And the other thing as well is, well, where did this lunation cycle begin? It began at the new moon in Gemini. And this is a really interesting point too, because Gemini is very, you know, it's very cerebral, right? It's very mental. It's an air sign. So it takes us into the mind, into our thought, streams of thought, right? And so that new moon really reflected a lot of beautiful things, actually, because it was very close to the degree of the Gemini Venus star point that occurred on the June 4th. And Jupiter and Venus was supporting that Venus star point and that new moon, and there was a lot of great things happening. So if the lunation cycle began there, which it did, and now we're at the full moon point, which means we're at the halfway point of the dance between the sun and the moon, then what I would say to that is, whatever you initiated or whatever seeds you planted during the new moon, whatever you might have integrated from a mental perspective relative to knowledge and understanding, ideas, communications, things like that, the full moon now is showing you, okay, well, this is perhaps what you decided to step into relative to something you might be studying or communications you're having with certain people. It could be about business contracts. It could be, you know, it could be absolutely anything, right? But it specifically has to do with some form of information, right, that either you're extracting from somewhere or sharing with somebody or receiving from somebody, or it could be networking that you're doing, you know, it can be a number of different things. Whatever it was that perhaps you started at that point, the full moon in Capricorn now says, okay, well, it's time to get a little bit more serious about what it is you've started at during the new moon, right, with the Venus star point in Gemini activating that Gemini energy as well. You know, get serious about what you actually want to do with this, because the alternate to that would be to do the Gemini thing and just kind of jump around here, there, and everywhere. I'm watching this video, I'm watching that video, I'm watching this person talk about full moon in Capricorn, I'm watching that person, you know, I'm getting all these ideas, you know, rah. That's fine, but where are those ideas taking you? Are you anchoring your ideas into something? Are you committing to something? Are you taking things seriously, or are you just fucking around? just to put it in layman's terms, right? So the full moon in Capricorn, I think at a personal level, is showing us that as well. It's saying, look, step up, commit to something instead of just sort of jumping around all over the place. Okay, so there's that in this mix as well. And of course, moving forward, with the sun in Cancer, which is the solstice time and so forth, we've stepped out of the Gemini arena to some extent, because I say that because Jupiter is still in Gemini. So we've got, a whole year left of lots of learning. A lot of wisdom can be gained with Jupiter in Gemini. The downside is, because remember, Jupiter is in its detriment in Gemini. The downside to Jupiter in Gemini is overcommitting to a number of different courses or things you're interested in and so on and so forth. And then you find yourself in the situation where you've got a pile of so many different things and your energy is completely scattered and you're not anchoring into anything. That's one of the downsides of Jupiter in Gemini, right? So the Gemini factor is still very prominent and active in the ether because of Jupiter's position in Gemini. But in terms of the personal planets, Sun, Venus, Mercury, all in Cancer, there is that process now of shifting out of the mind, Gemini. We've been through Gemini season, as it were, and we're going into Cancer season, which is very much about our own personal sense of safety and security in the backdrop of this reality, And once again, the ultimate evolutionary lesson with the archetype of Cancer is to integrate our own inner security so that it is not dependent on anything external of us. That is the ultimate lesson of Cancer from an evolutionary perspective. So we can think about that as well relative to just Cancer season, basically moving forward for the next few weeks. And, Capricorn, Cancer is about, taking, integrating and building deep emotional inner security so that no matter what changes in the external world, your external environment, you're not knocked about, your foundation is still intact, as it were, your inner emotional foundation, right? And then Capricorn, full moon in Capricorn, is about, really taking control and being responsible for the various things and taking it a little bit more seriously. The final thing, and then I'm going to go because I'm freezing and I've got some things to get to. I've actually got to move again. I've got transiting Uranus in my 4th house, and since it's been in there, it's really just it's been a very difficult transit, to say the least. So I have to move again, and now I'm going to be running around through winter trying to find a new home. Cancer. It's not the best of times, once again, but anyway, it is what it is. And, I'm just reminded, I just got a really loud ringing noise in my ear just then. Which I just know someone's speaking to me. One other thing I want to say about Capricorn and full moon in Capricorn. Capricorn, as I said, at the highest level, it can be just really tapping into our own inner authority, right? And taking control of our perspective of reality, right? So that we can feel like we are in some sense of control, because the truth of the matter is so much is out of our control. And that's a difficult thing to accept for most people, and especially people who have a lot of Capricorn energy. But it is a truth. Think about the iceberg metaphor, the iceberg, on top of the water in the ocean. This is something that's been studied in psychology, psychoanalysis, and so on and so forth. And it is something that's recognized very strongly in evolutionary astrology as well. The iceberg represents that part of our conscious ego, if you like, personality, how we think, how we perceive and what we see, right? And the ocean, the entire ocean, represents that deeper part of us that is infinite, and that is primarily unconscious. So imagine that, that metaphor is so powerful. I love to remind us of that metaphor because it just shows us that the unconscious, the waters, the ocean, is so powerful, and we are unconscious to that. That actually reflects just how much is out of our control from that conscious level, which is a little iceberg just sitting on top of the ocean. So I lost my point about Cancer. I think I was just going to say something a little bit more about Cancer there. May come back. Finally, I just want to bring up, and I mentioned this a few videos ago because I flagged it from a little while ago because I knew it was coming up. Pluto opposite Vesta, here it is, it's begun. I feel that this is, from a collective perspective, honestly, it would be very difficult to predict what that would mean on a collective level. But if you're a Vesta kind of person, or if this Vesta-Pluto polarity is sitting somewhere in your chart that's activating something quite personal, or if you just decide to, just explore, step into that energy, then it is very much a soul energy. Couldn't be described in a better word, because Pluto correlates to the soul, and so does Vesta. Vesta is the most mystical goddess. She has so much to her that is so hidden, that is never working, obviously. I did a video on Vesta just recently, actually, so watch that if you want to know more about Vesta. But I feel that this is, again, at a sort of deeper level, if you like, around this full moon energy, or even just in the Cancer season, which is, very much about going within. Even though in the Northern Hemisphere it's peak summer and everyone's, really sort of out there and active, and it's the opposite for us. We are going in and down because it is freezing here, we need to keep warm, etc., right? So we have, just such an opposing experience, the Southerners to the Northerners, right? And that's just how it is, always been like that. But even so, even though you guys are in summer, there is still a process happening inwardly, because Cancer is a water sign and it takes us in and down. All the water signs do. It doesn't matter if it's summer or winter, there's still something about that energy that takes us in and down, even though we're out there, in the sun, sunbathing, whatever. But you could be swimming in the ocean, you're, connecting with the water, even though it's summer. There's something inward about that process, internal. So the Vesta-Pluto opposition, in amongst the backdrop of all these other energies, is that deeper journey of really investing in what's true to your heart, Leo, and bringing it into alignment with the soul, Pluto. So basically we're talking about heart, Leo. Aquarius is about individuation. It is about humanity as well. And then we've got Pluto, which is a symbol of the soul. We've got Vesta, who's a mystical goddess who corresponds to the deep inner work that we do. So I feel that this alignment in the backdrop of everything else is really saying, okay, full moon in Capricorn, take your stuff seriously. Take control of what you are doing and what you are seeing and what you are participating in, while things are being smashed to the ground. Neptune, all the disillusionments are being, thrown out like dirty laundry. Everything's just crashing and falling apart, dissolving. But, we have to remember, as drastic as that may sound, and as sometimes it can be really painful, really disappointing, really sad as well. I think Neptune in Pisces brings this somewhat sadness in our human form, because there is this longing soul, Pisces soul energy, and Neptune corresponds to the ultimate source, the ultimate truth. So there's this longing, if you like, of with Pisces and Neptune, there's always this unconscious memory of something more beautiful and more divine than this fairly harsh reality that we have at the moment, because of the enormous transitions that are taking place. So there can be a real sense of sadness, because we know that there is something a lot more beautiful and a lot more pure than what we are seeing. And Neptune and Pisces energy always reminds us of that in some way. So I feel like we can tune into that in some way and get a glimpse of that in some kind of way. But we can't do it out there. We need to do it within. And Vesta and Pluto are a part of that from the sense of Vesta speaks to what you invest in, right? And in Leo, she's saying, I want to invest in what's really true in my heart. And I want to do it with all my soul. Pluto. It's a beautiful energy, actually, beautiful. But it is really deep, deep, complex energy that you may not see the physical sort of manifestation of it, right? Because as humans, and with our personality and our ego, we generally want things to happen quickly, right? The ego is insatiable. It can never have enough. And with such a fast-paced world, the way it is now, especially, it's so fast-paced. You know, no one's got time for anything, so to speak, right? There's this sense that we've got to keep moving, we've got to keep doing this, we've got to keep doing that. But Pluto Vesta doesn't work in that world. It works in the deep unconscious layers in our psyche. So we have to find a way to open that door and step into that realm and see what we find. I watched an interesting series just recently called AOA. And it's a series about lots of different things, but primarily the story is about a multi-universe, and the characters in the series experience ways to travel into other dimensions. And it was just, you know, various stories and experiences surrounding all of that. It was a mind-blowing, trippy series. I encourage you to watch it if you're interested in how someone has created this possibility of multi-dimensional realities and what it might look like, you know. And that it just reminded me actually of this Neptune in Pisces at the last degree. That's what that series really reminded me of. And just the main takeaway from it, actually, which was so beautiful, God, it was so beautiful for me, was that the main character in the show, who started this whole thing of being able to transcend, you know, go experience herself in other dimensions and so forth. It was such a Neptune Pisces energy of what she represented and what the whole show represented, actually, because it was about sacrifice, it was about suffering, it was about pain, but it was about the deepest, deepest, deepest love, right? Not the romantic love that we all kind of want, which is, you know, natural. Like, I'm not making that wrong. That's perfectly natural. We all want to experience, you know, romance, and which is all the fifth house Venus kind of stuff, right? That has its place. But the love that I'm speaking about here, which is Neptune, remember, Neptune is the higher octave to Venus. So this kind of love is it's the universal love, right? It's this energetic imprint that is in everything. And at the highest level, it's that unconditional love. And you could see this character bringing through so much love in the most painful situations, and sacrificing herself because she wanted that love, or her purpose for what she was doing was beyond just what she wanted, which is Neptune, right? It's giving and sacrificing and understanding that there is something much bigger than just our own little self and what we think we want and need right now. And then just to finish up, I'm feeling a lot of distress at the moment because of my home situation, and I know there's hundreds and thousands of people in my case, in my situation. I know that. So I'm not sitting here thinking, why me, poor me, not at all. I'm aware so many people are going through this, but it is a difficult thing. It is. And I just moved not even 2 years ago, to this place. But to be honest with you, I don't actually like this place. It's not right for me. So I've understood spiritually that this has just been a real transitional period for me. I was never meant to be here long term. So I've accepted what's happening, and I'm just opening up to being receptive to opportunities and possibilities, right? So it's all good. But then, because it has been quite a stressful thing in my mind, because that's where the stressful stuff kind of happens. It happens in our thoughts, because we have so many thoughts entering our mind, and we can't control our thoughts. It's a fact. We can't. We have over 50,000 thoughts entering our mind daily. You cannot stop that. But what you can do is find where you are in that stream of thoughts and what you are hooking into. Am I going to hook into that thought? Am I going to hook into that thought? What am I going to focus on? That's where we have a sense of power, if you like, or a sense of choice. And then last night, just to finish off, I was watching, there's this artist here in Australia. He's brilliant. He's just brilliant. He paints portraits, right? And he's just amazing. And what he does is he just brings people onto his show, and he'll pick a famous person, or he'll pick so many different types of characters, that have walked different life journeys, which is why I love watching him as well. And he sits there. It's such a unique show. He'll sit there and he'll talk to the person, and he just invites them to share their story, right? Whatever their story may be. And as the person is sharing their story, he's tuning into the energy of that person, and that's what enables him to create the portrait, as opposed to just looking at a person who's mute, who's not saying anything. So he takes the energy of that person as they communicate their story, and that helps him paint the portrait. It's so beautiful. And last night he painted a portrait of a girl. So if you think you've got it hard, listen to this. This girl was only about maybe 1 or 2 years of age when this happened, something like that. She was hit by a car. The injuries that she sustained are so severe. It's like, where do I begin? But let me put it to you like this. She had 4 degree burns all over her body. In the end, what happened was she lost her legs. Her whole body was burnt. She'd lost an arm. It was just, I just, when I was watching it, my heart was just like, it was hurting. It was hurting. So anyway, she's in hospital, and the hospital basically said to her parents, look, she was in coma, right? And she was on life support. And they just said, look, even if she comes out of this, her quality of life is going to be very, very, very challenging. She's no legs, one arm's gone, 3rd degree burns to her body. She's going to have so much surgery, so many, that the journey ahead is going to be like hell, basically. And that the hospital said, do you want to turn off life support? And they said, no. And so how bizarre is this? And talk about fate and destiny, because this is so fated and so destined. she eventually gets out of hospital, there are multiple surgeries, etc., etc. And then I think it was a year or two later, she got hit by a car again at the age of 4 or something like that. Smashed all her ribs, again, severe damage again. And this girl now is 18 years old. And if you saw her attitude, her spark of light and spirit through her eyes was just freaking phenomenal. And how grateful she was for, because she's clearly got 2 parents who are so strong. It takes so much strength and courage to go through that and support that journey with your kid, right? 18 years of supporting this person through multiple surgeries, skin grafts, she's had the whole lot done. She's got prosthetic legs. It's so intense, the story. But when you saw her and this guy who's painting her and he's inviting her to share her story, she was laughing and smiling the whole time. She had nothing bad to say, nothing negative to say about love, about the world, about anything. It was a very, very inspirational story. Now, you may think, how is this relevant to the full moon? It's not, but it's a beautiful story. And I wanted to share it because when you think about maybe your own situation at the moment, just remember a story like this. Imagine living that life. So we do have to be grateful and count our blessings, no matter what. And there's deeper reasons why things happen. It's never about punishment and things like that. There's a deeper purpose as to why things happen in the way they do. This girl is such an inspiration. She's helped so many people. Her parents started a charity foundation for kids who are in her position. So they've raised millions and millions of dollars. So there's a reason why things happen. Anyway, I'll leave you guys there, and hope you take something away from today's sharing, and I'll see you guys very soon. Don't forget, if you want to join this class this Friday, Neptune and Pluto, reach out. You've really only got a day to kind of let me know. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Happy solstice. And I don't like saying happy full moon because it just seems, even happy solstice kind of seems a bit, it's so, it's just so, it doesn't feel like it has real authentic meaning. Happy full moon, happy solstice. I guess just, just tune into the energy and experience whatever it is you're going to experience. It's not always about just happiness. It is about sometimes opening the door to more difficult things and growing. That's how we grow. When everything's super light and bright and super, super, super happy, we're just having fun. We're just having a good time. That's important too. We're going to have a balance. But we can't just always be happy all the time and just be, having no challenges at all. How the hell would you grow? So challenges, very important for our soul, how we grow, how we evolve. See you soon.